Yeah, right. Ready?
There we are. Yeah, ready as I'll ever be, mate. As
Yeah,
long as you are.
yeah. 10 ways to better navigate the small creator's journey. Hello, and welcome back to the Signal Over Noise podcast, the short, sharp podcast all about helping you isolate what's important and get after it in a meaningful, time efficient way, despite all the noise and distraction that modernity throws at you. As ever, well, again, I'm Owen Evans, and for the very first time, this is Sam Evans, my brother, co host, and co conspirator in the project. Before we get into this episode about 10 hard earned insights into the new creator's journey, with the aim of better preparing you to navigate and negotiate the trials and tribulations that lie ahead, let's ask you, Sam, who are you and what can you offer our listeners?
Good question. So I'm Sam Evans, clearly Owen's brother, based over in London, in the UK. I guess in reality, I'm a kind of like serial builder. I think is probably the right word. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a creator, but like for at least 5 or 6 years now, alongside my day job, which is working in tech as a product manager, I've been tinkering, building little projects, some of which have sold like nothing impressive, but made some sales, and others have not been so successful. But yeah, nothing that's been necessarily life-changing, but just having a blast, enjoying building things and learning along the way. Current things I'm interested in are, of course, vibe coding, but from my previous role as a data engineer, I've been enjoying getting reacquainted with code because it's been probably 3 or 4 years since I did any coding. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, right. I've got a joke that I think makes sense to someone that understands coding, but I don't. So you'll have to tell me whether or not this is funny. What is a coder's favorite language? Oh no,
Go on.
what's a coder's favorite letter?
But
It's the same as for a pirate. You'd think it'd be R, but the first love is the C.
what? C?
Is C a coding language?
It is. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Otherwise that joke would only work on pirate. And
Very good.
I
Very good.
don't co-host any embryonic podcasts with pirates, so wouldn't otherwise have got a chance to use that. So I guess that's super interesting and helpful introduction as to who you are. And then, I've already put out 2 episodes that have played out to nobody, so I guess nobody knows who I am either. So I'm Owen, I'm Sam's brother, and I'm a medical doctor living and working down in New Zealand, having trained and worked my first couple of years in the UK. I was in psychiatry for a bit, and I think one of my insights there was that the world needs more psychology, not more psychiatry necessarily. Doesn't need more drugs thrown at the problem, not for a lot of problems, but it does need, fresh ways of thinking and different ways of approaching problems, dealing with sort of issues of poor sort of mental health and a lack of interconnectedness and things like that, social isolation. And I think hopefully I can use sort of psychological insights for getting over trials and challenges from other aspects of life to sort of help people to keep moving forward when they encounter problems and challenges. How do you think what you do and what your experiences are can help you bring value to people that are trying to, separate in a cluttered, noisy space of a conflict of a million different things you can do or could be doing? How do you, help those people to figure out what it is that would be a good enough thing to do and get after it?
Dude, I'm looking forward to being therapized, to be completely honest. I'm probably guilty as most, well, I'm going to speak for men as a cohort here, but as in general terms, but I am very guilty of not being very introspective or reflective at all. I just kind of take every day as it comes and goes. So hearing you talk about psychiatry versus psychology and trying to learn from you and trying to effectively bring out and trying to understand things a little bit clearer, along with maybe one day 2 or 3 people who might be listening to us, then I'd love to do that. See, I do feel quite strongly about a few things, particularly, obviously, you might be able to already guess, side projects. But I do have a few things as well around focus that I'm kind of a bit like a dog with a bone, which is a good and a bad thing. Like, I get kind of obsessed, have a very obsessive, not obsessive is the wrong word, maybe obsessive, addictive, whatever the two, personality. So get into something, I'm into it, but it's also not healthy. So I think it's a little bit too extra, as I think my partner would tell me. But yeah, so honestly, I'm here to learn, but I will also have a couple of topics that I quite enjoy talking about.
Good. Yeah. And I think you need to back yourself. I think essentially there'll be a jury of our peers who decide to tune in or tune out and to fast forward or not your sort of sharing your own learnings, and they'll pass out whether or not it's of value to them, and they'll quickly move on or move away if it's not. So I think, you've spoken about being a builder over being a creator. Like for me, the distinction is quite an important one, because some people maybe describe themselves as an ideas man. What does that mean? Well, how does that fit in with the model? If you're an ideas man, are you not even a creator and you're not yet a builder? Is that, step one of a, at least 3+ step process? I think we could learn from, being a builder. What does that mean? What does that entail? To what extent do you need to be all in and quite obsessive, as you say, in your own words? Is it necessary but not sufficient to doing well? Are there stages or seasons of your life and your product development where you kind of need to be a bit obsessive and all in, and then recognize that there'll be other stages and seasons when you pull back a bit, or you get to a scale where you can pay someone else to do the things you're otherwise having to do yourself? What does that sort of make you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So, wow, there's a lot to unpick there, really, isn't it? I mean, creator versus builder, I think the two are quite separate, but I do think you're right. Actually, I don't know. I say that. I think they're relatively similar. Like, I do think of building as being kind of like an expression of what you're interested in and what you're passionate about. Like, there's a reason why I'm obsessive, and that's because I enjoy it. Like, I mean, just for some kind of not transparency, that's the wrong word, just to kind of illustrate it a little bit. And for people who don't know, this maybe you as well, there's a whole trend in kind of the side hustle world called vibe coding, which is effectively where you prompting LLMs to generate code. Now, that's not just well, you can do it with ChatGPT, but you'll be there for a while. But this is kind of like, it's a pretty awesome way of like creating something quickly, probably, and getting a feedback loop, which is much shorter than it would be if you were creating any kind of social media content. I mean, honestly, even blogging. But by doing that, like, you're getting like this constant feedback loop of like, okay, this is like, I know what I'm trying to build here. And then you can see it kind of come into life. And that's one of the beautiful things I think about code, whether it's vibe coded or hard coded. It's actually not the phrase. I forget the phrase, but I do think that there's like an expression there, and you start to, when you're doing it, like, you kind of get sucked in. And I think I don't know, is it healthy or not to be obsessive like that?
I think you measure it by outcomes. Have you skipped a lot of meals? Are your clothes falling off of you? Do you go to bed at the end of the day or wake up in the morning thinking, oh, that was something well worth doing. I'm glad I spent that day doing it. Or do you wake up thinking, oh, I'm excited to get after it because this means something to me? And that could, I guess, the meaning part, which I think is a big part of this for me, is, are there primary or direct meanings to what you're doing? Is the thing that you're vibe coding going to increase joy or decrease suffering in those that consume it? Or maybe there's a secondary meaning or purpose behind it. It's like, oh, well, it's going to put my children through school. Like, neither of us have children, so that's not applicable in our case. But, is it doing something of secondary benefit to you? If the primary, what the actual product isn't obvious why it's beneficial, but presumably, you're designing it for a reason, and there's some pretty obvious primary or secondary gain that's making you obsessive about the thing.
Yes, mate. I mean, perhaps it's just one of those things, like, so, but it's effectively building a B2B app, so that's business to business. So it's, rather than selling direct to a consumer, like you might see an advert for an app that's like targeted at you. This is to help people in their working environment achieve a certain goal. And with that, I think you're right. Like, it's not necessarily a impact project or like something where I'm trying to necessarily contribute and make a significant impact to, say, the environment or to any kind of social issue. Although that is a real big passion of mine, actually, from my career, my day job, and actually some of my previous hustles. We come back to those. I do think there is, like, you get to a certain age where if you haven't had the level of success, which is tricky in those kind of spheres, to actually go ahead and, like, you see, I'm in reality relatively monetarily motivated. I live in London. I have to have a certain income to be able to enjoy my life here. That's just the harsh reality of this city. But back to like being driven by either a mission or by money, effectively. I do think that there's like it's an interesting topic that we do need to unpick. And yeah, I think if it's a tricky one. Like there are definitely missions out there that are like highly monetarily like that can help. Like I saw an advert the other day and a reminder of Ecosia, the effectively the search engine that plants trees, and I was shocked. Do you remember we talked about this years and years ago?
Yeah.
The ad that I saw yesterday was like something like 200 or 300 million trees they've now planted over like 29 countries. So like clearly like there is like planting 200 or 300 million trees is quite incredible, and like that's no mean feat, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the logical absurdities there is, people will start thinking and picking holes and questioning Ecosia because maybe it makes them feel uncomfortable compared to their search history. I'm always on Google. I find it the most convenient and the one that provides me with what I want to get to the fastest. So when people bring up Ecosia and they planted 200, 300 million trees, people will start, shooting holes in it saying, oh, but that's probably just forestry lumber that would have been planted anyway. It'll be chopped down in 20, 30 years. So it's not so much carbon capture as it's like sort of a temporary holding place for carbon. All these things, but we don't hold Google or Bing or whatever else you might use to search the same standards. We don't say, well, Google should be doing something good. There's this sort of absurdity there that if you make your work driven by some sort of lofty goal or ambition or this, deep, meaningful purpose, you become measured by it in a way that your competitors aren't. So I think it's a motivator and it's a reason to get out of bed and do things. And you'll be rewarded by some customers, but other people will kind of use it as a stick to beat you with. Nobody, I don't think people really get after their competitors and say, you should be planting more trees. But people will get after Ecosia and say, you can do reforesting projects or carbon capture more efficiently, which is a bit of a side note really, because I think the main thing is the main thing here, which is if you've got a reason to get up and do the thing, then you'll do the thing. And if it's a good thing, then it's worth doing. And that's a pretty tight sort of flywheel that perpetuates itself. And particularly for, our listeners who are trying to figure out in this sort of, landscape of myriad opportunities, which ones matter and which ones should you get after. And then, you got to shift from ideas into creation, into building. And if it's a small project, side hustle, you're going to have to learn to be all of those things in succession or bring in other people that can be fast. I think the point here is like, you probably need a reason why you're doing it. You need a pretty compelling one. And money is like, first and foremost, it's a trusted medium of exchange. Before money, we had direct bartering and things like that. And, I'll give you 3 goats for your daughter or something like that. Every time you wanted to exact any transaction, complete it, you needed to, between 2 people, decide the terms and the value and the relative value of each object. Money for money's sake is probably quite hollow and empty, but money to buy a roof over your head, food on the table, those sorts of things, obviously that's not money for money's sake. These are direct, meaningful reasons to do the thing, the side hustle thing. If if your day job is not going to provide financially the life in the short, medium and long term that you aspire to have, then chasing money so that it can then be traded into those things, whether it's, getting to retire at 60 or 65, whether it's being able to own your own home, those sorts of things. Like those are all sort of pretty obvious examples of money carrying meaning or being the medium that can be exchanged for the meaningful thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think there is an important note here though as well about money. A few years back, I mean, this is one of the more fruity side hustles I attempted, and actually, I think that you're partly to blame for this. So, just to turn up the spice a little bit here, right, and turn down any kind of intelligence. Okay, an example of really where money wasn't enough was where Owen had come to see me in Montreal and he'd been reading this book, and the book, let's say it was a little bit spicy, and I don't know what the story was about him having this book, but anyway, I clearly wasn't enjoying it. And honestly, I think I read like maybe like the first few pages. And Owen was only, to be fair to you, you'd only just started this thing, but it was, do you want to come in now and defend yourself before I tell the story?
I'm not here to defend myself, but I'm here to just give a bit of context to the listener as to what the book was. It was by an author, I think his name is Chuck Palahniuk. I might have butchered the surname. I definitely butchered the surname, but he was the author of Fight Club. So he's sort of a famous author, and I'd never heard of anything he'd done other than Fight Club. And I was in a charity shop about to get on a long haul flight to come and visit you. And I think I paid 50 pence in 2023 money. So whatever that is, £10 in 2025 money for the book. And I left it with you because I wasn't enjoying it. But if you don't mind, I'll shut my face and you can get back to the story.
Well, honestly, I thought it was good to let you defend yourself there a little bit, because I think what one of the I don't know who it was, whether it was the Daily Telegraph or whoever, but on the back of the book it said Fight Club for sex addicts. But yes, you defended yourself already, so I'll stop digging you out, bro. Okay, so anyway, started reading the book, and actually I did my missus as well, and we were like, oh, this is interesting, and there's a whole world of erotic literature, right? And it's a huge market. It's worth looking up, actually, particularly for women. It's more of a women thing than a man thing. And we literally just happenstance come across this as ChatGPT and a lot of these other like AI chatbots were becoming available. So I thought, hey, like, why not generate personalized stories for people? How much cooler would that be? It'd almost be like getting into the driving seat, right? So erotic stories, I should say. Like, that's probably the most important part of that story. Personalized erotic stories. It'd take people down like a journey of their exploration. But also, like, honestly, it's effectively porn. Sorry, audio porn. But anyway, so I thought, hey, this is really interesting. I'd heard stories about people buying ads on Pornhub, and just like, okay, let's just, do you know what, screw it, let's throw caution to the wind. I was living in Montreal at the time. It was freezing cold at the middle of winter. It was like minus 15, 20 outside. So I was like, do you know what, I haven't got anything better going on right now. Let's just go ahead and create these stories. Anyway, I started writing these stories, and then just to like prove, hey, like, I hosted this, whatever, I did all the technical steps you need to do to host a uncensored version of ChatGPT as before Grok, the XAI version, was available. So anyway, I started to generate these stories, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. But I do remember thinking to myself, like, I hate reading erotic literature all the time. Like, I just felt a bit like it was horrible. And like, I knew that there was a huge market for it. And I started buying these ads, and people were actually interacting with and listening to just like the basic versions of these stories that I'd put onto it, like a basic landing page, click and listen. I could see people listening. It was called Fantastory if anyone's interested. But anyway, the point here though is I felt grim. This is nothing against erotic literature or porn. You know, fill your boots, like, enjoy life, get your kicks however you want to get your kicks. But it wasn't for me. So the moral and the kind of lesson I learned from this story was, like, I guess just to be a little bit more like careful about what you're getting yourself into. You can, like, for example, right now I'm looking at this business software, which to a lot of people sounds like dull as dishwater. I can't imagine like many people who are TikTokers are thinking like, yay, I'm going to make some sort of SaaS for businesses. They probably got really cool creative ideas about videos or whatever. However, I get my kicks from actually making like technical data-y products. So that's fine for me. But the moral of the story here is it's just to really think things through. You don't want to create your own prison. Like, sure, if you have a 9 to 5 that you don't enjoy particularly, just be careful. There might be an interesting like business opportunity. At the moment with my current B2B SaaS product, I've kind of figured out that I reckon at the bare minimum, it's got a TAM of about 200 million. Sorry, if anyone doesn't know, total addressable market, there's a pot of money, 200 million there, that is probably possible to be allocated for this particular niche. However, I could just be thinking, hey, this is awesome. Like, there's a load of money out there. Maybe I can try and grab it. But the reality of it is, like, that's going to be your 9 to 5. Or probably in reality, that's going to be more like your 7 till 7, your 7 till 9 of your life for a considerable amount of time while you start getting these things kicked off. It doesn't matter if you're making a TikTok about a topic you don't really care very passionately about, but you think it might do well on TikTok, or whether you're writing a blog, again, for purely SEO reasons that you maybe don't enjoy or find interesting. Like, everything, you can end up creating your own prison for yourself, which, you know, for some people is fine, because the reality is sometimes we do need to get that, just need to get that first like kind of kick of finance, but money, like, because that's the reality. Like a lot of people, like you've sent me the graph before. I've seen the graph before of the house prices against income. It's crazy. Don't know if we can even flick it up on screen.
I think we'll keep some gunpowder dry for future episodes. I think we'll do a whole episode covering whether or not there's a economic imperative to have a side hustle. And that'll be just, I guess, like a bare bones conversation where we sort of bear our cards out as people who've been lucky enough to, you know, break through the paper ceiling by getting university degrees. And then we've been able to go after reasonably solid, but not particularly moonshoot type trajectory sort of earnings pathways thereafter. And we're in this position doing this podcast, trying to explain to people, like, I think you probably do need to be thinking about whether you need to spend some of your free time dedicating yourself to a thing that is going to, you know, supplement what you do in your week, or perhaps replace it by adding in things like meaning, purpose, but also monetary gain. So we'll cover that off in another episode. Going back to your point there, thank you for sharing that story. That was a load of fun. I guess a couple of observations for me is, it sounds like it should have been fun to do the project because people enjoy the consumer experience of erotic literature. It's a, you know, 50 Shades of Grey did very well. There's a market, there's addressable market, but there's a bit of an insight there that, you know, the consumer versus the creator experience are not the same within a singular niche. So just because you enjoy being a consumer of X doesn't necessarily mean you'll enjoy being a producer of the same thing. You know, for example, I like listening to country music. I can't sing very well, and I don't enjoy the sound of my own singing voice because I haven't, you know, done much talent acquisition, repetition, practice, 10,000 hours, all that. I don't sound very good when I sing, so I don't sing country music, but I quite like consuming it. Another insight for me is I like thinking of a couple of sort of like mantras to sort of get through life that I find useful. One of them is, what would tomorrow's me thank today's me for doing? You know, and I can use that as motivation to go to the gym or do something that I don't really feel like in the moment, but I know that over the short future term is good for me and in my own best interest. Or that could be do the revision you're trying to put off so that tomorrow's you when they're walking in the exam thinks, thank God I looked that up. Or at least when you're getting out of the exam, thank God I looked it up.
Yeah, another like kind of mental model I use sometimes is like, it just something you said struck me there is about, you know, if you don't quite feel like it, you know, tomorrow me is going to thank me. I've kind of like got this other thing I do, which is a similar kind of mindset, but it's like, hey, if you're feeling like feel like crap, or, you know, got low energy, you haven't got much time, there's always something you can do. Like, and it's not just about like, oh, okay, I must progress and must make some like my side hustle, like I need to do something or whatever the thing is you're projecting on. Like, I this is a rather rudimentary, but I have this thing called productive procrastination, which is effectively like, okay, cool, like right now, Sam, you know you've got to do the weekly shop. You do it today when you're feeling a bit rubbish, or you do it tomorrow when hopefully you got some more energy, some more time, whatever to commit to it. You got to tidy, like whatever you got to do, tidy the flat. You got to even go to the gym as well. That's another thing. Like, hey, if you're not feeling like in the right headspace or something, there's always going to be something else you can do which could free up future used time. Like, so that the idea there being like, okay, you've got a 9 to 5 job. If you go to the shop, that's going to take you the minimum of an hour. However, on a Sunday, for example, this week, my friend's wedding, Saturday, I actually didn't drink at all. Not because I'm against drinking, as you well know, but I randomly had a doctor's appointment on the Sunday that I had to fast for 6 hours. So I thought, hey, actually, do you know what? I won't drink because I obviously don't want to get drunk and then not drink any water for 6 hours straight tomorrow. Anyway, so what I did there on that day, I was feeling a bit tired because I still didn't get home until 1 o'clock. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to I made like a list of, actually I was projecting, made a list of like easy, low cognitive load tasks that I need to do for my project. So really basic things like I was in Canva, I was like basically exporting a load of different versions of icons and lining them up with the website, like really basic like tasks that are time consuming. I just made a list of low energy, high time effectively tasks to do and crash through them, which did include going to the shop. I didn't go to get to the gym because I thought actually if I was fasting for 6 hours, that's a terrible idea. I'd probably pass out or something. But yeah, actually, you can doctorize me. Would I have fainted if I hadn't eaten for 6 hours or drank anything for 6 hours and went to the gym?
I would say probably not. You might have felt like it, but lots of people fast for much longer than that. And most humans, for most of human history, had to go more than 6 hours regularly without food. We just
You
live in this
pathetic modern man.
exactly era of abundance and modernity maybe has made us a little bit pathetic in that regard. And we should be bloody grateful for it, I guess. Back to your story that you've shared. The other thought that I had is another thing that I often ask or tell myself is, if not now, then when? If not me, then who? It's not my own. I'm not quite sure whom I borrowed it from, but thinking about your story there with the trying to give people personalized AI generated erotic novels, if not me, then who, is this idea might have some merit to it, might be a viable business product, but it's for someone else to carry out. It's for someone else that can do that without feeling that self-directed ick that for those 2 hours a day, they're doing it after work before bed, because, that's not going to make you feel good, basically. That's not long-term sustainable. It's not a project that you're going to want to be signed up to or really be properly invested in.
I'd absolutely be a cheerleader as well. And I would love to even see a case study if someone's done it or someone knows that someone's done it. If one day someone listens to this and they know someone who's done it, please let me know. I would love to have a little look at their website and see how they went about solving that problem, because it's a really cool concept in reality, just not for me.
Yeah. So that will be an interesting one to look out for. I'm just now noticing we're sort of getting on for 30 minutes. And I introduced this as the Short Sharp podcast. This particular episode was going to be all about giving you 10 hard-earned insights into the new creator's journey, with the aim of helping to prepare people to better navigate and negotiate the trials and tribulations that are sure to come their way. So I'm going to get into that. It's not obviously an exhaustive list, and these are not one-size-fits-all sort of learnings, but these are learnings that I went through when trying to organically grow a YouTube channel over the last couple of years, in which it was sort of medical sort of literature searches and the scientific method applied to common fitness products and supplements. And we'll get into it now, and I'll ask for your sort of thoughts and questions at the end of each one. So number one is the hard work no longer pays off in a linear fashion. If you've got a day job, if you're a salaried employee, you have an hourly rate, and there is that relationship. Yeah, crack on.
Yeah, leverage is crazy right now. Web coding has made coding really easy and accessible, but probably more accessible to everyone is social media. Everyone has a phone which has a camera on it. Most of them are bloody good cameras actually nowadays as well. Yeah, it's not linear in respect of like you put in 100 hours and you like as a graph grows, then it will go at like a 45-degree angle. The reality is it's going to be a curve. It's going to be like a, I don't know, call it like a hockey stick, but a field hockey stick. It just curls up at the end, go nothing. There's a really interesting image actually. Effectively, it's like a line, and then it says like there's like a voice in someone's head, and it goes, "This is pointless." And then that voice in his head is saying that just before the curve goes up. So you're thinking, "This is stupid. This isn't going to work. La 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 la. This is pointless." And then boom, there we go. Wow.
Yeah. So I think a way of conceptualizing this is that nobody can know based on just somebody else's history, given that the context is different, the paradigm shifted, the technology has moved on, the algorithms have warped themselves in ways we can't fully understand. You won't follow the same hockey stick trajectory as anybody else. So, you're on your own trajectory, and it might be exponential. If I put out a blog post about how smartphones are ruining children's lives, and Jonathan Haidt does the same thing, he'll get 1 million reads, and I might be able to persuade you to read it. So I think that's the point here, really, isn't it? That you can do good content creation, and in the early stages, it might not pay off. That's sort of to be expected, but there's a gamble baked into it, in that you're getting variable rewards, in the same way that if you put all your money on a particular outcome at the casino, you're not guaranteed anything. But that's part of the thrill. You could get a lot. So you just got to go about creating something that's useful to others, or that you think is useful to others, release it into a crowded, competitive space, accept that space is ruled by algorithms that already have their favorite content creators, and know that you're essentially making a gamble, that initially the odds are stacked against you, and that your time and effort won't be rewarded with many eyeballs or ear holes, but eventually you'll reach a monetizable audience, potentially.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is like from a personal level, you kind of think as well when you go into a project, you'll be thinking, wow, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do this incredible thing. So I'm going to get 1 million followers, have such a great time. But I think the reality is really hard, but you have to keep buying lottery tickets. Like you use the gambling analogy there. You have to keep going and keep trying because you never know when it's going to actually work. And that could be in respect to, if you're on TikTok, you're a creator generating various outputs that people might find entertaining, informative, etc. It just takes one to actually like really boost you. If you have a whole back catalog by that point, then that's incredible. That means then if you do manage to have that one video, blog, podcast go viral, then who knows what could happen next. It's just about keeping your nose to the ground and keep going for it, which is easier said than done because you can be very easily disheartened when you don't see results you want to see. I think there's a phrase that Mr. Beast uses, which is like, hey, don't talk to me about your YouTube channel until you've created 100 YouTube videos, which is like so true. Just got to keep going.
Yeah, so I guess that those are two really good points, that if your content's evergreen or not tied into current affairs, then it can be discovered at some other point, and actually it can fuel your growth totally detached from the date you release it later down the track. Like you said, if you get that funnel or spout of something that draws people in to your content. And the other thing is, you can just bear in mind the algorithm favors what the algorithm favors based on what attracts attention and makes money for the platform that you're on. In time, you can become one of the favored creators within a particular niche or space for said algorithm. And what you say, just cracking on and doing the thing and doing it well. You just got to bear in mind that is necessary, but not necessarily sufficient for, becoming really well known and successful. Like you have to do that, but it's not afforded to everyone. It's not a case of you make 100 videos and you'll be a success. You can make 100 bad ones and still not be. You can make 100 good ones and still not be.
That's absolutely right. Sorry, I should also add that you should be learning along that process. That's why he talks about 100 videos.
It's right. Yeah.
It's right to learn.
Shouldn't look exactly the same as the first day.
Yeah. This is me when I wake up in the morning. Great. No one cares about 100 video. As opposed to, let's learn how we improve things, learn from others as well. But yes. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Hit me with number 2, dude.
Number 2, negative comments will sting far more than positive ones will soothe. Don't be dissuaded by early criticism. Commenters' motivations are often more personal to them than they are to you. Some people just enjoy being right. Others revel in pointing out that others are wrong. In time, we might come to thank them for helping expedite our process of moving towards the truth. But the important thing here is basically to prep yourself that if you are going to spend time hanging out in your own comments section, which is generally regarded as a good idea in terms of algorithms favor videos that draw eyeballs for a long period of time, even if they draw eyeballs through, heated debate and conversation in the comments section, then just remember that this thing happens. People are saying things not to help you, to pick you up or anything like that, but to pick themselves up quite often. And also remember that the internet allows this veil of anonymity and this distancing effect of dehumanizing people from other people in the comments section. So they're not going to act with sort of the humility and humanity that you would expect two people bumping into each other on the street with. So, that's just part of it. And you sort of got to either buckle up or just get out and just accept we're going to sort of leave that relatively low-hanging fruit on the tree and we're not going to go after comments. Or I'll delegate it to someone else to be the person that gets in there in the comments.
I wouldn't even be surprised. Is there any kind of AI that can do that for you nowadays?
Oh, yeah, probably, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I suppose the one thing you got to be careful with that kind of thing is you should be conscious that AI will do its own thing. So if you're having it effectively represent your opinion or your perspective or your angle on something, just be incredibly careful. Because yes, it might say something you don't agree with and it will say it in your voice and with your avatar. So
I guess technically that would be deep faking yourself. And if you wanted to do that well, you would need to master the skill of prompt craft or writing the right sort of rules and restraints into what your AI comments replying algorithm is to make sure that there are rules that are consistent with your own internal rules and values. Otherwise, you're just going to nuke your own growth trajectory by allowing this AI to spout off at the mouth, pretending to be you. That's wild, but I'm sure it's happening. Should we move on to number 3? criticism capture will get you nowhere. Lots of people talk about the pitfalls of audience capture, or essentially ending up as an exaggerated meme of your most successful content, just simply because that one topic, theme, or idea that you stumbled upon generated more views and subscribers than anything else and everything else that you've covered. It is a real risk, but also provides quite a lot of upside, potential life-changing rewards that if you're willing to become a meme of yourself, just harping on about one particular thing, then you're doing it because it's popular, and because that popularity is therefore allowing you to feel good about your message being important, or allowing you to make money off of ads, or whatever it is. The thing that can happen at the other end is that you can allow yourself to be captured by the critics, who are usually people that don't have your best interests at heart, have no investment in you succeeding either personally or professionally, and aren't going to stick around to consume any more of your content anyway. So you basically shouldn't allow your future direction to be overly influenced by negative comments, and allow these people, who might just be internet trolls, to become the tail that's going to wag the dog moving forwards. And what I would suggest you do instead is to select a group of sort of trusted advisors who you genuinely think have your interests at heart, and open yourself up to their criticism and take that in. So that could be your, IRL friends or family, or it could even be members of your online community. But you sort of want to invest the sort of time in sort of getting to know each other, and know that they probably have your interests at heart before spending too much time exploring the merits or demerits of their criticism, and how it should affect your future content production.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have any frameworks or ways to think about this, but I do agree that like it would be very easy. I could see that it'd be very easy just to go to the bottom of the comment section, see some negative comments, and think, fuck, I need to change this and that. But the reality is, no, you do what works for you. But also, as you say, don't over-index on those positive comments either, because you're going to need some variety there. But yeah,
I guess one thing to think about would be, imagine a successful content creator in your space. Imagine how many negative comments they're getting per video. Hundreds, thousands. It's just sort of law of large numbers stuff at that point, but they are not allowing themselves to be disencouraged or disinclined to continue pursuing something they think is worthy of pursuit. Number 4 is don't get lost in the data analytics weeds. Tracking video watches, retention arcs, and that sort of stuff can be quite thrilling. And watching your first video that gets a bit of pop in the Spotify for creators or YouTube Studio app is loads of fun.
This is my jam. I love data. I love like everything I do at work and outside of work. It's all driven by data. But I think you're absolutely right, though. Like the actual world of being a creator is more of an art form, and maybe goes back a little bit to what I was talking about earlier, where it's just like, hey, on paper, this feels like an interesting like thing to do. Like the numbers stack up, but the reality is like actually you're a human, and people are interested in you and your content. And most likely they'll be interested in what you're interested in if they share a similar persona to you. So yeah, it can be very easy to fall into the trap. I think I've told you multiple times though, find out what the people are searching for on YouTube. You're like, no. Like there's a method to the way that I'm deciding what videos I'm going to make. It's actually much more human.
I guess what I'm not saying there is don't employ data. It's be careful of procrastinating by watching your own data come in real time. You could set aside, say, an hour a week to analyze the data, say, are these thumbnails working for me? What can I review? What can I alter and mend? You can be doing these reality tests of what introductions work better on different videos, and see which ones, you get that drop off and which ones you don't, to the stickiness. But it can be a real form of procrastination to feel like you're doing something productive when all you're doing is watching the numbers slowly roll in. That'll roll in or not, regardless of whether or not you're looking at them, when really what your sort of virgin embryonic channel needs is more good quality content along the same theme, or at least following the same structure. And then the other thing is, the law of really small numbers and the limited amount of qualitative data that you get on these things. So the law of small numbers, why would you allow 150 views versus 100 views to influence what you're going to do going forwards?
Absolutely, man. I totally agree. I was thinking of a very similar thing. Well, in the early days, there's going to be like the 80-20 rule will apply. It's like, hey, what are the 20% of things that I can do to have 80% of impact, like the biggest amount of impact? Like you don't want to be doing all 100% of things you can be doing. You could overanalyze, like, I think intros are really important. Clearly they are. That's how you retain viewers, right? But maybe you don't need to give two hoots about a soundtrack or whatever. You just need to hook someone in and go for it. You don't want to be like tweaking like certain notes in your soundtrack or something. So there's that. Also, just a little anecdote about small numbers. I remember I made my first and only TikTok video, and actually it had like maybe 500 views or whatever. And I remember somebody questioning the validity of the topic I was talking about. It was like, that's not true. And I was like, and there was literally like only 3 comments in the thing. So I was looking at it, I was like, basically thinking, fuck you, it is true, because it was. Talking about like Chinese women pirates is really cool. But anyway, I remember thinking like, I'm going to go to war for this. And I was like, but the reality is like, that's not a good idea. There's much better things I could be doing, like maybe making a second video. But yeah, anyway, so I'll let you come back in with your next one, bro.
Yeah, I think in terms of living a good life, well lived, I think there's probably always better things to be doing than going to war in the comments section. Hey, even though as a creator, there might be some sort of indirect gain through additional retention time, I don't think it long term would pay off anyway. Like, don't go to war with people who you want to be listening to and consuming your content. That just doesn't seem a good look and doesn't seem like something you should want to do if you're sincerely interested in offering them something of value.
I think that's me not learning from lesson 2. But I'll let you go on to lesson 4.
All good. Now, lesson 5, I believe, that's acting despite imposter syndrome. So we must have all sort of felt that sense of like, what right do I have to be here and under whose authority? And I think part of that is sort of indoctrinated into us by this schooling system that we spend the majority of the early first 2 decades of our lives in, plus university, where you're always looking for external validation and somebody else to say, yes, you've done well, you're good enough, you have a right to be here. Once you sort of leave the schooling system, you just don't have that anymore. You don't have someone who says, right, you have what it takes to be a successful podcaster. You've got to put your hand up, give it a go, and find out if you do. So I think this can be one of those areas where really comparison can become the thief of joy, particularly when you're comparing yourself to somebody you role model off of and you aspire to be like, and they're already competent and good at what you want to get competent and good at. The issue here is if you compare yourself to someone who's already really bloody good at what you're learning to do well, you're always going to come off unfavorably and second best. You can just dial down how much of their stuff you're exposing yourself to whilst you learn, and just use it for learning purposes only and nothing else. But the thing is that the important thing to remember is they're already a professional at what you're a budding amateur at. Like, they are going to be slicker and more accomplished. You're not an imposter because of that. It's also worth bearing in mind that imposter syndrome is useful. It's sort of that anxiety or angst to sort of get amongst it and become competent at a thing. It's a pointy stick that we use to help ourselves to get better at things fast. It does have a role. It's not entirely useless or negative.
I do think as well, like, with it being such a strong emotion, I guess you don't, I mean, some people might literally think, why am I here? Or like, how did I get here? Or whatever. I don't deserve to be here. But I think the other thing with it as well is like, I've definitely had experiences in my life where I've had it, like serious imposter syndrome, but then come out the other side and had some like really positive feedback. And I feel like that hits harder in a positive way, where you're like, okay, cool. Maybe I do deserve to be here. Maybe I am capable. Maybe I am able to do whatever it is that I've set out to do. It didn't feel like I was within my right to even attempt to do. So you can think of it in like as like as a positive forcing mechanism. Once you've got over that hump, it will feel like honestly, I feel like it feels even better when you were like, I'm just a guy. I did a thing and the thing worked. It's pretty cool. Like, it was in my brain and now it's like actually out there. So yeah.
And if you're going on a long growth journey, you can also expect it to happen again and again. You're going to sort of keep raising the stakes, keep progressing to higher levels of competence, but you're still going to then move on to the next level at which you are, until you get competent, you're going to be incompetent. So it's part of the journey. So a couple of sort of things that I thought about is that action eats anxiety. If you're worried about not being good enough at a thing, go and do the thing, or do some focused practice to make you good at the thing. And even if you fail spectacularly, then you'll probably likely learn that anxiety was right and that you need to approach things differently and move forward differently. So you actually gain information and get rid of that anxiety just by doing a thing, even if it goes badly.
Hell yeah.
Also, bear in mind that there's basically no such thing as a spectacular fail for a new content creator. Your fails basically go unnoticed, and it'll be your eventual successes that get you noticed and shared. The next one's number 6. So that's running out of ideas, or the feeling of running out of ideas. This one might seem a wild one for a new creator, but consider this. We feel more than we think, and we think more than we say. So take an idea that you currently feel is a good one. Think about it. Are there any good videos in it? Could you do a long form podcast? How about a book? Next, speak it aloud. How long did that take to get through it? All of that's to say, even new creators that have been sat on the sidelines stewing on ideas for years may run out fast if they've not been using their time on the sidelines to generate a rich catalogue. Here are a couple of useful hacks. Get a notebook, jot things down in it. This allows you to retain ideas far more effectively than trusting that false friend, the human memory. Next, once you have an audience, use it. Ask for comments and suggestions, and turn answering their frequently asked questions into new episodes. And/or search Google Trends, something you taught me about, for interesting topics and ideas that exist in the same space as your content, but that you may have a blind spot to.
Another little one I love is Reddit. So the really cool thing about Reddit as well is you can very well validate things as well. So Reddit, for anyone who doesn't use it, just an incredible community where people share all types of things. So the cool thing though is that like people are posting links or stories on there to various articles or topics. You can see how popular or unpopular it is based on the number of upvotes or downvotes. Unlike in Instagram or social media, most social media platforms, you can also downvote things. So it's a true representation of how successful or not something is. Also, a little fun extra, I guess a little bit of extra juice is in there, like they're pretty witty. People in Reddit are pretty witty, and the comments also get upvoted or downvoted. So you can get a little bit of extra content or potentially an interesting angle or two about a topic that has been posted on there by just kind of harvesting the comment section, or at least the top of the comment section. Down the bottom is a bit like trash. But yeah, there we go. I think I'm actually on my own now, I suspect. His laptop has died. Yeah, I guess I'll close it out then. Guys, appreciate your time. This was my first experience trying to record a podcast. I also hadn't prepared in the same way as you can tell Owen had. But yeah, I guess just to keep me honest next time around, I've written a couple of notes here for myself. Firstly is to stick to the topic. Owen and I have spoken about this before. We both want this podcast to be concise and to the point. There's a kind of a funny oxymoron with productivity podcasts. It's like, hey, you know, you can listen for 2 hours to a podcast and almost have, I think Owen calls it mental masturbation, whereas like you can convince yourself that you've done something, you've achieved something. The reality is most of the things you will have listened to in that podcast, you will have forgotten about. You won't have a time to implement. So I really like this. Well, actually infuriates me a little bit, but any of you, those of you who have an office job, you're probably familiar with the phrase, here, have 5 minutes back or whatever if a meeting finishes 5 minutes early. What about if the podcast was 15 to 30 minutes as opposed to 2 hours long? Perhaps that in that case, we could actually give you that time back and you can go ahead and implement whatever it is that we've been trying to teach you about in a concise way.